Hi, this is Meeta, and today I'm going to give a brief overview of the rental income and expenses tracker for 125 properties. This also tracks taxes, insurance, and maintenance. So, the first tab that we go to is the Settings tab. In this, you can enter your company name. Let us say your company is ABC LLC. You can change the fiscal period as you wish. Since we are in 22, we'll leave it as it is. Next, you can customize the income and expense categories as per your choice. For example, you can leave these income categories as they are, and you can add additional income categories as per your wish, such as another income. The same goes for the expense categories. You can leave all the pre-filled expense categories as they are, or else you can overwrite on any that you feel you do not need and would like to change. Or you can come to the bottom where I have kept some extra expense categories that you can add. For example, say pool expenses. This last category, which I have highlighted in red, should not be changed because this is for fixed HOA expenses, and I will demonstrate that later. Next, we come to the vendor list. You can enter your different vendors, the contact person, the services that they provide, their contact number, and the address. After the general settings sheet, we come to the property settings. Over here, you have the property code, which is in the green column. These should not be changed. You can add your own property code for each of the properties that you own, but these should be short, within 12 characters, and they should not have any special characters like hash or the @ sign or the and. So it's best to just leave the property codes as they are over here, or at the most, if you would like them to reflect an address, such as say 100 Southwest 10th Street is the property address, you can maybe call your property 100 Southwest 10. But it should be compact, within 12 characters, and without any special characters. We'll revert to property 1 for now, but yes, you can change the property codes just to make it a little more easier for you to see what each code refers to. And over here, you can enter your other details for the property, like the folio number, the rent, the tenant name, the start date, end date, deposit notes. This is usually useful if you have long-term tenants, so you can enter all their information over here and refer to it as needed. If you have short-term tenants, you can just enter it at the direct input sheet, which I'll show you in a minute. We come down, this is the property settings, and as you can see, we have 100 single properties. Next, we come to the multi-unit properties. This is property 101, property 102, property 103, property 104, and property 105. And each of these has individual units assigned to them. So say your property 105 has 5 apartments, these would be your 5 apartments in them. And another thing to note is that property 101 on its own can have income and expenses assigned to it. For example, if you have a building with 5 units in it, and the building itself has, say, a maintenance expense or a landscaping expense, it can be assigned to the whole building, which would be property 101. You do not have to assign it to any individual units because that expense would be for the whole property. Now we come to the dashboard. As you can see, your company name got reflected over here, ABC LLC, which we entered in the settings tab. And over here is the navigation row. You can quickly jump to any tab within the spreadsheet simply by hovering over the tab and clicking on it. So we are now going to the income tab. There you go. Let's go back to the dashboard to see the other rows in it. So nothing in the dashboard should be changed because this is completely automatically calculated. And you will get your totals right up over here for all of your properties, the total income, expenses, profit, profit margin. Then we come to the monthly summary for all your properties combined. As for, say, for example, for Jan, the total income from all your properties would be $6,500. These are all made up numbers. I have just put them in to give a brief example. So for all the properties combined, the income would be, say, 6,500 for Jan. The total expenses would be 780, and the profit would be 5,720, the profit margin being 88%. And so on for each of the months. So you get for each month how much your entire portfolio performed. And at the end is the total, which would be for the whole year. And this also gets reflected over here. So for the whole year, the total income for this group of properties was 58,350. Total expenses was 9,285, and the profit was 49,065. Next, we come to monthly income by property. So now you're actually going to be seeing how each property performed and also in comparison to all the other properties. So property 1 had $5,000 in income in January. Property 2 had $4,500 in income in July. Property 3 had $1,000 in March and $5,200 in August, and so on and so forth. And now we come to monthly expenses by property. So in January, property 1 had expenses of $100. We go down further, and here we come to year-to-date summary by property. So property 1 had total income of $5,000 up to date and total expenses of $100, profit of $4,900, and 98% profit margin. And so on for all the other properties in this portfolio. Then we come to the year-to-date summary of income by property. Again, it is per property, and here you get a drill down of each income category. So you now know that property 1 had rent of $5,000, property 2 had rent of $4,500, property 3 made $5,200 in rent and $1,000 in storage. Go down to the year-to-date summary of expenses by property, and you see property 1 had expenses of $100 in advertising. And down here we come to the graphs. Here you get the profit percentage that each property is contributing. So you immediately know which one of your properties is your best performing or the one that is performing the least. Over here we know that property 5 has performed at 14.9%. It has contributed to your profit, while property 7 has contributed 15.9% to your total profit. Here comes the graph for the income, how much of income each property is contributing to you. So say property 5 has contributed towards 12.5% of your total income. Property 7 has contributed 13.4% towards your total income. Next, we come to your expense categories. Over here, you can see which one of your expenses occupied most of the percentage. So over here, fixed HOA expenses took up 87%, advertising took 1.1%, appliance purchases took 7.5%, cleaning took 1.3% of your total expenses. Then we come here to your expenses by property, how much each property is contributing to your expenses. So over here, we can say that property 105 had the most expenses because it took up 26.7% of your expenses. And down below is a graph to show you the income, expenses, and profits by each property. We now come to the income tab. And over here, I already have entered some data and we'll enter a few more. Let's say October 18th for property 10, rent. As you can notice, I just clicked on this little arrow down here and this brings up a drop down list. And you just click on the income category that you want to choose. So here we're choosing rent. And just enter the rent that you have for that property. If it's a new tenant, you can enter the name. You can have a start date, an end date, the next rent due date would probably be November 18th since he paid on October 18th, a deposit, and notes. Let's enter another one. The good thing about this sheet is that you do not need to be chronological with your dates. You can just enter dates as and when you want to record for any property. So say we had a rent coming in on October 1. We'll enter that, put it in for say property 9. Once again over here, this is a drop down list and I'm just choosing the property by going up and down with my arrow over here. It's property 9. You click on the drop down button and maybe I want to say that I got storage fees in income and that would maybe say 500. Now that we've entered it over here in the dashboard, you'll see that the income gets reflected. Also, you get a running total up here of your total income to date. So it's 60,350. Let's go to your dashboard to see the changes in property 10 and property 9. As you can see, property 10 had income of $2,000 in October, and give it a few seconds because Google takes a little while for the updates to show. As you can see, it's still updating out here. So you've got to give it a minute or two. It's saying calculating formulas, and soon the property 9 storage income will also show up. There you go. So you see we had $500 in storage for property 9, and it now shows up in the dashboard for October for property 9. Going further down, you will see in the income categories, rent for property 10 is 2,000 and storage for property 9 is 500. Now let's go to the expenses tab. Let's enter a date. Let's say October 1 and property 10. And let's say there was an appliance purchase of $150. You choose your vendor from the vendor list, maybe vendor 2, and you put in notes, maybe a microwave purchase. And this will show up in your dashboard. Let's go there. And as you can see in your property 10 expenses, we are going to wait a few seconds because Google takes time to update all the formulas. And as you can see, this, it's showing the tab calculating formulas. So we'll have to wait a few seconds for this to show up. Well, we're getting to the end of the green bar. There's 125 properties with multiple formulas in all the dashboards, this main dashboard, as well as the dashboards for each of the properties, the multi-unit properties. So there's a lot of formulas that are calculating. So we've got to give Google Sheets a little time to do its calculations. And as soon as that green button finished, we see over here the $150 for the appliance purchase for property 10. And if we go up, you'll also see that in your year-to-date summary, property 10, $150. And this will also show in your expenses by month for property 10 in the month of October. Now let's go to the HOA fixed expenses. This makes life very easy when you have the same HOA amount, the homeowners association amount for a property. So say for property 1, you have a homeowners association amount of like $200 per month. So instead of going every time to your expenses and then clicking on the HOA dues, which you could do, no harm in that, you can just come to the sheet, enter the amount once, and it will get populated for all of the months, and it will also show in your dashboard. So this saves you a lot of time. Next, we come to your, and I also should show you about your dashboard, the HOA expenses, fixed expenses that I meant to in the beginning. So let's go to that. As you can see, these are the HOA fixed expenses showing $1,200 for property 1. And that is why in the settings, this should not be changed because this is referenced in the dashboard as a fixed HOA expenses. So this should not be changed. And now we come to the taxes. This is a very useful sheet which shows you when the tax is coming due. You can enter your tax amount here. So let's say your tax amount for property 1 is say $1,500. Say you have paid nothing so far, 0. And so the balance due will be $1,500. And say the tax due date is November 1st. So immediately it shows you that there's 14 days remaining and it's not overdue as yet. And as the days come closer towards the due date, the color will get more intense. So say the tax due date is actually October, say 20. As you can see, this yellow became more darker and the days remaining are 2. This is a visual indication to you that you're coming close to the tax due date. Similarly, we have an insurance due sheet. Works the same way as the tax due date. You put in your insurance due date, you put in the insurance amount you're supposed to pay, say it's 1200. If you haven't paid any insurance paid, just leave it blank, or say you've already paid 500, it will automatically calculate the balance due. And say the insurance is due on October 25th. Then it shows you that the days remaining are 7. And if there is any date that the insurance is overdue, like over here we've said it's September 30th, then it will show you that the days, it's 18 days overdue. Next, we come to a maintenance schedule. And this is very useful for you to keep track of all the different maintenance items that you have for your buildings. I already have pre-filled the different maintenance items for spring, fall, summer, and winter. You can definitely go in and change any of these as per the requirements for your building. And over here, it's just a simple checklist. So say you already have inspected the HVAC ducts for property 1 and property 2, and then say you've also done it for property 6, just say yes or an X, whatever you prefer, and so on. So you know which properties are pending to have what maintenance due. Here we come to the the multi-unit property dashboards. These track the units for all the units within that property. So say the unit 101 had rent of 1500 in Jan, it will show up in this dashboard over here. So that's it for the demo of this rental income and expenses tracker for 125 properties. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me. My contact details are at my website, moneyusage.com. My email is moneyusage@yahoo.com. I'm also on various social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.